So that was September 8, 2009. And then I still stayed there until I came home from Afghanistan Thanksgiving of 2009. And then I received the medal from President Obama, I think it was September 15th of 2011, I think.
In what condition were you in by the time you met President Obama?
Yeah, I got to be honest. I was lost, right? Like I came back, how do you, what do you do now, right? And then, the biggest, I think the biggest factor that amplified it was, I lost my whole team. And to me, whether you look at it or not, a lot of times we try to change, and I think we do this a lot, but a lot of times we try to change the narrative a little bit so that we don't ever, we know the truth internally, but we try to change the narrative because the truth doesn't feel good, right? And so for me, I went in to get my teammates out that day, and all my teammates died. So I failed that day. And there's no way that no matter how you change the narrative, the reality is that. The facts are the facts. And so then to get the Medal of Honor on top of that, it was like living with the failure in the face of the nation. The reality of it, though, is you can't change that narrative, because if you change that, you change the lessons that I learned from that day on who I am today, right? You change, and my guys, they died. They're remembered as heroes forever.
Right.
They died for this country. They died for every single one of us.
Right.
How awesome is that? Right? Like, that is awesome. That is the greatest thing you can ever die for, is for all of us to be able to be here today, right? And so, for me, that day, I was making it about me when really it was about the bigger purpose of what is the greater good. How can you take this terrible thing and turn it into the greater good for more people?
And so what did you learn, Dakota?
I learned, it's literally the lesson that is the epitome of who I am as a father, of who I am as a person, of who I am as a firefighter. It's all those, right? And so what did I learn from that failure? I learned that the stakes are high. I learned that no matter what you do, you better go all in, because, losses, wins and losses, they're all just moments in time. And, because I failed that day, does it make me a failure? Absolutely not. But going out and living a life with purpose, going out and trying to live up to the sacrifices that those guys gave that day is the ultimate lesson of that, right? Everybody in here is going to go through something hard, right? Everybody in here has gone through a struggle, right? Everybody in here has their worst day of their life, but it's about, what are you going to do after that worst day of your life? Are you going to sit here and are you going to let it define you and let it be your identity? Or are you going to go out and let that be your fuel to do good and to make sure that other people don't have to learn that same lesson? The part that I'm trying to change is the narrative for my generation. The problem is that my generation, if we don't get our stuff together, we're going to be remembered as 22 a day. Nobody's going to know a battle that we won. Nobody's going to remember anybody that did it. People are going to remember us as the suicide generation. That's going to be our legacy. And we've got to change that. And we have the power to change that, right? And, it is a tough transition out, right? It was the purpose that I had in the military was the greatest thing ever. But I think where we can help, though, is the reality is, and I tell these service members all the time, I didn't know what my purpose was while I was in. The military gave it to me, right? The military, leave no man behind. The brotherhood, right? Like, and guess what? How many of you all are employers in here? How many of you all hire people, and how many of you all have companies in here, right? You know what you do? You know what you all can do for people is give them purpose as well. Right? You all can tell them what that purpose is, of how they contribute to the greater good and how their job impacts other people, because every one of us in here want to be needed. Every one of us in here want to be valued, and we want to add value to the world. If you don't want to do that, you wouldn't be sitting in this room. I would guarantee that, right? All of us want to be that, right? And it's the same thing that you're seeing across all of the world right now, right? It's not, this suicide, this 22 a day is not unique to just the military population. It's across the world right now. And so us being able to change this is a big deal. And so, yeah, I mean, look, the mental health aspect is something that we all struggle with, right? And it's something but companies like you all can change that narrative. And so, yeah, getting out was hard. Look, when I got out, there weren't too many job openings for snipers. I mean, legally, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I could have got hired somewhere. But there weren't too many job openings for snipers. But in the reality of it, like if I'm going to just be honest with you, do you know what percentage of my job was actually pulling a trigger and doing anything that I can't do at a company? Maybe less than 1%. Maybe less than 1% was actually pulling a trigger and fighting. The majority of my military service was going out and running patrols, was making sure people got their stuff together, was training other people, was going and figuring out how to solve problems for, really it was a glorified problem solver, right? I was either solving problems for my service members that were next to me, my brothers on my left and right, or I was solving problems for the place that I was at, the location, whether it was Iraq or Afghanistan. All I was trying to do was make the world a better place. And that was what my purpose is. And if that's my purpose, well, guess what I can do? I can replicate that in anything that I do. I can literally make this room a better place. I can always do something to leave every room better than I found it. And so when you simplify it down that way, transitioning really isn't that hard.
Well, that's because I think you got a pretty good grip on it. And so you and I were on a call not too long ago, and we were talking about leadership, and you said, I don't like leadership. I like peopleship. Yeah. So can you describe for them what that means to you and to them?
Yeah, we all are so busy trying to get the secret to leadership, right? We're all listening and reading these books on leadership and the leadership traits and all these, we're all trying to, it's almost like the new weight loss fad, right? Like we're all trying to get the edge on leadership, which it's all great. But leadership is really just peopleship. And I tell leaders the number one aspect to being a leader is you can only be as effective as you can be empathetic when it comes to people. If you don't care about people in this day and age, people can tell it. And people want to work for and they want to work next to people who care about people, right? And as employers, employing people in the 2024 or leading people in 2024, it looks a lot different than it did back 10 years ago. Now, leading people is about figuring out how you can help them, how you can help empower them to be successful at what you need them to do. It's not about what they can do for you. It's about how you can help them be successful. It's not about how they can help you be successful. That's what leadership is. And that's what it was. It's the same whether I was running a team or leading a team in the mountains of Afghanistan, or whether I was leading a team in Iraq and going through the city of Fallujah or Karma, or whether I'm going out here and I'm leading somebody in any other aspect. It's all about, or leading my household. It's all about taking care of people and about being an example of that, right? Like the problem is we have right now, when you just focus on leadership, is when you're leading, you don't have to focus on yourself. It's all about figuring out how to get other people to do what you need them to do. And where the breakdown of that right now is that we've got broken people trying to lead broken people.
You talk about teams and brotherhood. Those are powerful words. We talk about employees. How do you build a team? How do you build brotherhood? You came from a small town in Kentucky. You met a lot of different people.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to being able to a team is nothing more than a group of people who believe and are trying to achieve the same objective. I mean, that's what a team is, right? And we try to romanticize and we try to make these things, we try to overcomplicate these things, when really it just comes down to a group of people who are trying to accomplish the same thing. But a lot of times we've got people or teams out there who, who don't have people that care about them to empower them to go do that, right? You got people in the wrong positions. And so, where I've been at, I mean, think about this. I always think about, we were able to get people, when people say, oh, it's about the money, or it's about, we got to pay them more. Obviously those things are factors. I'm not trying to eliminate those factors, but if you want high performing teams, you've got to get them to believe in the cause. They've got to believe in the overall arching of what effect they're going to have in the greater good. That's what the highest performing teams do. You have to get them to believe in that, right? They have to believe in those factors. And so, that's been something that has, I've been doing since I've been on the football field, right? I mean, you take some of the lowest paid people in America are the men and women who wear the nation's cloth. Yeah. And we ask the most of them. I mean, these are people who are willing to go give how many of y'all have been asked to give your lives for what you do right now in this industry, right? I mean, these people, we're asking them to go die at a moment's notice for the idea of democracy. And guess what? Yeah, recruiting numbers are a little low right now. Yeah, it's kind of worrisome, right? I think it's going to get fixed. I think it's a communication problem. I don't think it's a problem of people wanting to serve. I think it's a communication problem. And so I think the military's behind on their recruiting piece. They're a little bit outdated on that right now. I think that's the real issue. It's not about this next generation doesn't want to serve. But think about that. Like, if we can get people to go give their lives for a small amount of money, with what you all pay people and what the industry can pay people, you should be able to get them to go do it. And it's about them believing in their cause and the impact that they can make on the world.
I love that.
We got to change our perspective up. I call them, leaders have got to be conversation changers, right? They got to switch the direction of this narrative of, think about this. How many of you all in your business, AI has made your business better, more effective, more efficient, made your bottom line, right? I mean, what if you all didn't change the narrative and it was like, oh, AI is so dangerous, right? AI is going to destroy the world, right? I mean, think about that. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's in the hands of who you are. These narratives have got to be changed. We've got to stop letting other people put the ideas of this out there that are just false. We live in the greatest country on the face of the planet. Do we have problems? Yeah, so does every other country. I don't see anybody putting up walls to keep Americans from moving into them. It's a great sign that we still have the greatest country ever.